I have the Deputy Secretary General of the ANC, Mejesi Duarte, to talk to us or to give an indication in terms of the ANC's position after the presiding officers and, of course, President Jacob Zuma and political parties in Parliament took a decision that the State of the Nation must be postponed. Mejesi, the ANC reaction to the news.
Well, thank you very much. Yesterday we were concerned about what the State of the Nation would in fact look like, given the current situation in the country. Concerns were expressed. However, we left the decision to the President of the Republic of South Africa, who convenes the joint sitting of Parliament and this thing we call the State of the Nation address. And our understanding was that there was some consultations early this morning. He decided to postpone the State of the Nation at the same time as the presiding officers were on their way to see him. So I think their minds met and they took a collective decision that it was in the best interest of the country and, of course, the African National Congress that the State of the Nation be postponed.
Can you share with us, in terms of your concerns, what were the concerns?
I think that we're concerned about the fact that we're trying to resolve a fairly difficult situation, where, as you know, there have been calls for the President to resign. Those voices came from within the ANC. We are having our National Executive Committee tomorrow, where a proper discussion will be held. We've had a discussion with President Zuma. We have heard his views. We conveyed those views to the NWC last night. The NWC decided that there should be an NEC meeting to convey the same views to the NEC. So in the process of trying to discuss a fairly, I would say, sensitive and difficult matter, because primarily we have no interest in humiliating the President of the Republic. We also have no interest in keeping South Africans out of the loop, and we would wish to be able to go to the country after Wednesday and give a proper, decisive ANC perspective. Up to now, there hasn't really been that clear decision as to which direction we're going, and therefore we thought that, you know, the concerns naturally were around the impact of what the SONA would do to people on the ground. Number two was the question of whether it is right to convene the joint sitting of Parliament in the face of the kind of strain that we appear to be having. This was not in response. I want to make that very clear. This was never no one ever mentioned the opposition. We were analyzing matters on our own, and in our own way, in our own special ANC way, which takes into account various issues. We don't only look at the interests of opposition parties, but we look at the interests also of the individuals concerned, as well as the country. And, you know, you can't not do both. Everything must be put flatly on the table. However, it's also very clear that the ANC doesn't make decisions based on an individual only. It makes decisions based on the impact on the country as a whole and the ANC as a whole.
Mejesi, in 2008, let's go back to pre-2008, after there was some sort of tension between the two, the sitting president, then Thabo Mbeki, and the ANC president, Jacob Zuma, and many other issues, the ANC by now should have learned that if there's this gap, or one can say a lagoon, or, you know, a two centers of power type of situation, didn't President Jacob Zuma perhaps learn something? We are told that during the NEC meeting that took a decision to recall President Mbeki, he was against that. Didn't he learn that perhaps it's better after the conference of the ANC, if there's going to be that gap, to voluntarily give an indication to the ANC structures and the country that yes, there's going to be a transition and this is my role. Because now it looks like, or he's being portrayed as someone who's taking ANC through pain.
I think that's a very unfortunate perception that is being created of President Zuma as being intransigent. I think if there's anyone who is really concerned about the direction that things have taken, it is him. And obviously, really the decision is not his about how to manage a transition. And our understanding was that himself and the president of the ANC have been meeting to discuss exactly how to manage this transition. What may be difficult is that as they're discussing how to manage the transition, you find pressures from every sort of sector coming to bear on both of them. We thought that the plan that they had put to us was a good plan. Clearly, what is really the difficulty is there is a structural problem in our system, in that there is an 18-month hiatus between the conference of the ANC and a new government being put in place. There was a good reason for that, actually, and my recollection of that understanding was it was a period of handing over between one person and the other. Leaving a public office and the office of the president is not like you walk out and shut the door behind you. There's a great deal of handovers to be done. You know, in other systems, that almost takes 6 months where this happens. When the formality between, I think if one looks at a system like the US system, I think they have their elections in October, and the final departure in a helicopter is something like 4 months later. Now, we obviously are looking at that now. We're saying, let's have that discussion. The late Sicelo Sicheka was the first person to raise this matter of alignment between the ANC conference and the national elections. Having said that, I think that's a bit of water under the bridge at the moment. What we're obviously trying to achieve right now is something that will bring calmness back to the country, ensure that our people and our cadre in particular understand that we've all left Polokwane, Nasrec behind us. It's time to move away from the trenches and to accept that what happened here yesterday, for instance, was disgraceful. One person has been arrested, another one will be apprehended, but that kind of churlishness is not something the ANC endorses, nor do we want it. But it goes way beyond that. I think that what we're also looking at is, it is the job of the opposition to be mean and abusive. And in our country, that is their task. We've seen that now. We haven't met with an opposition yet that looks at things from a straightforward point of view. Already yesterday, Julius Malema was insulting the president of the ANC in his interview. So this is more about the ANC.
But the ANC create this climate. I mean, if this matter was resolved amicably, yes, because it was anticipated that there will be those who are saying the incoming leader the transition must happen. Mm. And fortunately, in this case, Ramaphosa is the Deputy President of the Republic for almost quite a number of years, and the experience has been in the presidency. The transition should be much quicker, unlike if it's an opposition taking over or someone new who has never been part of government.
That's a very interesting view, and I thank you for that view. However, our system is not working like that. And you can't make a system work when it isn't formally in place. And therefore, we trusted that the transition that we were informed about was going to work. And it should work. I think President Zuma and President Ramaphosa have worked together before, very closely. They worked during the CODESA period. President Ramaphosa was the Secretary General. His deputy was President Zuma. So I don't think we need to talk here about chemistry. And often people relate very complex issues to a matter of chemistry. It's not a chemistry question. This really is about a manner in which we can find a way to reduce the pressure that is brought on by supporters of various people in our society and the aggressive opposition in our society to see a change that is mechanical. And it is political. It cannot ever be mechanical. So for the moment, our reality is that we are going to have a discussion in our NEC. We're looking at all of these matters. I don't know the outcome of that discussion. The NEC makes the final decisions. Whatever that decision is, we will all live with that decision, either way, in the ANC.
Is the top six united this time around? Because when we watch on television, we read in newspapers, you seem to be holding different views, and that's actually strengthening the confusion, particularly to ANC members and the country, international community, and dated with calls. People want to know what's happening in South Africa.
Unfortunately, we don't edit the newspapers that we speak to, and I wish sometimes that we did. If you're asked a question and you say we don't have a decision at the moment, that is interpreted in a particular way by a journalist. I can't help that. All I can do is to say at the time I in particular was asked that question, all I could say was we don't have a decision at the moment. However that was interpreted was the way in which it came over. We are now instructed by the National Working Committee as 6 people and the NWC of 20 to go to the NEC and give a report back. We all are in agreement on that matter. We all are in agreement that the best thing for us to do is to take this issue to the National Working Committee, who is the ultimate decision-making structure in the ANC between conferences. Once that decision is made, we all own that decision, just as I and all other members of the NWC and the top 6 own the decision of the National Working Committee.